He is a fellow at the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai. He received his BE in Computer Science and Engineering from Jadavpur University, Kolkata in 2008, and later on received his PhD in Computer Science from Duke University, Durham. Later he was a postdoc fellow at Algorithms and Complexity Department, Max Planck Institute for Informatics, Germany, and a Theory and Applications of Algorithms Research Group, University of Vienna, Austria. His research interests are dynamic graph algorithms, online algorithms, data structures, streaming algorithms, and algorithm engineering. We really welcome him for taking time to be with us and to give a talk in this afternoon.
Thank you. Can everybody in the back see what I am writing here? Because if you don't follow it, you should probably come a bit closer to the front. Because I don't have any slides. So I will only be using these two. I have seen the big O notation. Say for example, when I say that the running time of an algorithm is say big O of log n. What does this mean? How many of you know what does this notation mean? Yeah, so can you please raise your hand, those of you who know what this notation is? Okay, since some of you don't know this notation, I will start by explaining this notation. And let's just go through a quick example first. So, basically, the simplest example of divide and conquer algorithm is what is called binary search. So, what is a binary search? You are given an array of n elements, say 1 to n. Okay, so one last question. How many of you know what an array is? All of you know what an array is, right? Okay. So you are given an array of n elements, and now these elements are in sorted order. So they are sorted. Say in increasing order. Now what does this mean? It means that the first element is less than the second element, and so on. Elements are distinct, so these inequalities are strict. If they were the same, nothing basically will change, but it's probably a bit simpler to think about this. And now you are given, you have to solve the following problem. What is this? You are given a number x and you are asked to check if this number x belongs to this array. So meaning you will return the index I from 1 to n with ai equal to x if it exists. So if the element x belongs to this array, then of course there will be one index I such that ai equal to x. Or you just return failure otherwise. Okay. So now, this is asking for an algorithm, right? You are just given this array and you just need to find if x belongs to this array. What is the simplest algorithm that comes to your mind? Sorry? Yeah, linear search. So what does linear search do? Linear search will say, I am not writing this thing here, just go through the elements one after the other and check if that element is equal to x. So the pseudocode will look like this, but I am not going to write pseudocodes anymore. I mean, this is probably the only example where I am writing the pseudocode.
So for I equal to 1 to n, check if ai is equal to x. And if yes, then return. You don't need to look at the I plus 1th element anymore. Okay. So now what is the running time of this algorithm? So by running time we mean roughly the number of operations that this algorithm will perform. Somebody said big O of n, right? So what does this mean? It means this. Suppose x is not present in the array. Then how many times will you go through this for loop? N times, right? And for each iteration, how much time you are spending? Constant time, right? These are just two operations. Now, depending on the particular machine you are using, the exact time will vary from machine to machine, but it's some constant. So the time taken will be n. Now suppose the instance is such that the index is j such that aj is equal to a. Okay. Then what will be the time taken? Order j, right? Is this clear? Because you will just start from the first element, second element, third element, you go to the jth element, you find that aj equal to x, and then you just return, you exit. So the point is, if j is small, then it's much smaller than n, right? But this is the point of big O notation. When we say that this algorithm has running time n, you take the worst possible instance of size n. So the worst possible time this algorithm can take is actually order n. Okay. So now the question is, can we speed this thing up? So what binary search does is, it will give you an algorithm for the same problem that runs in order log n time. Okay. How many of you know what log n means? So the rest of you don't know what log n means, right? Okay. So let me just explain what log n is. Log n is a function. So if I say log n is equal to k, then it basically means there is a base involved here, say log n to the base 2 is k, then it basically means 2 to the power k is equal to n. Similarly, if we had log n to the power base alpha, where alpha is some other number equal to k, this would have meant alpha to the power k is equal to n. Now what does this mean? This function log n grows much slowly compared to n. So you can say that when n is equal to 2, what is log n? This is 1, right? Because 2 to the power 1 is equal to 2. Say when n is equal to 64, it's 6. Why? Because 2 to the power 6 is 64. In general, say if n is equal to, say 2 to the power 60, then what will be log to the n to the base 2? Sorry? 60, right. Okay. So now see, when n is 2 to the power 60, log n is 60. Now this is a simple thing. 60 is a reasonably small number, right? We always deal with 60 rupees notes and so on. How large is say 2 to the power 60? If I am not mistaken, you can just go check it in Google. 2 to the power 60 is larger than the number of observable elementary particles in the whole of universe. So if you just even go beyond Milky Way galaxy, go through all the galaxies, you won't find more than 2 to the power 60 elementary particles. I am not talking about atoms. I am talking about electrons, positrons, protons and so on. It's much larger than that. So it's a huge number. Okay. So when n is such a huge number, log n is just is our ordinary 60, small. Okay. So this is the thing. This is just not some mathematical formula. What it's representing is, if you say that I am doing this binary search in log n time, where earlier it was taking n time, it's a huge improvement over the running time. Because log n is way smaller than n. And you should just try to feel how small log n is compared to n. Okay? So in particular, when the input size is much larger, say for example, when the input size is probably n equal to 2 to the power 10 or something, which is probably a real world input. I mean, you have to search over a millions of items. If you run this algorithm, you have to spend 2 to the power 10 times. Whereas if you run this algorithm, the number of times will just be proportional to 10 units. Okay. So now, how will binary search look like? This is where the term divide and conquer comes into picture. What basically it says is, you divide the original problem. The original problem had input this had as input this array, right? You divide this original problem into a smaller sub problem. So this is the first step. So divide the problem into smaller sub problems. What are these sub problems? I'll come. The sub problem means a problem of smaller size. Say for example, a sub problem for this will be, if I just give you two indices, say I here and j here, and ask you to find whether x belongs to the array in between these two indices, then this is a smaller sub problem. Then the step 2 will be solve each sub problem recursively. What does recursively mean? Yeah, it just means you just apply the same algorithm on the smaller sub problem. Okay? And then step 2C will be combine the solutions of the sub problem to return the solution to the original problem. Okay? So basically this step should be called divide, conquer and combine, and not just divide and conquer. So this step is divide, this step is conquer. So you just solve the smaller sub problem, and this step can be called combine. Combine the solutions from the smaller sub problem. Okay? So it's almost like this. Suppose you have lost a key somewhere in this building, and you want to find where the key is. So your initial problem is find the key inside the whole building, and now you are just partitioning it into sub problems. So you first go to one room, and then your problem is find the key in this room. Then you go to the next room, find the key in that room, and you stop when you found the key in one of these rooms. So finding a key in one of these individual rooms is a smaller sub problem than finding a key in the entire building. Okay. So for binary search, what you do is as follows. Just look at these entries, okay, of the array. Say A1, A2. So this is the middle entry, AN over 2. Say AN. What you first do is compare, you want to find x, right? X with the array element halfway down the matrix in over 2. Now there are three outcomes, right? What are the outcomes that are possible from this? Exactly. So case 1 is, you see that x is equal to n over 2. Then the problem is solved, right? What else to do? You just return that, okay, x is present in there. What is case 2? X is less than a1 over 2. And what is case 3? Let's consider case 2 first. X is less than n over 2. If that is the case, if case 2 is basically the case, then can it ever happen that x belongs in this region of the array? No, right? And why? Because the array is in sorted increasing order. So every element in this region is greater than n over 2. So if x is less than n over 2, x has to be somewhere in this region. So x is somewhere here. If that is the case, then what we will do? In the next instance, you just call the same algorithm on a smaller subproblem. What is the smaller subproblem? Just find x in this region from a1 to an over 2 minus 1. Okay. And similarly, if x is greater than an over 2, you know for sure that x lies in this region, if at all it lies in this array. In that case, you call a different smaller subproblem. It just says find the element x within this portion of the array from n over 2 to 1. And this will go on. So what will be the general situation? So for example, suppose you went here. So suppose it was case 2. Okay. So then you consider this subproblem, right? So when you are considering this subproblem, which element we will check first? N by 4. Because there are n over 2 elements in this portion of the array. The middle element is a n over 4. So you first check if x is here. Now suppose you found out that x is greater than a n over 2. Then what do you know? That x lies in this region, right? Between n over 4 and n over 2. So in the next iteration, you will call the smaller subproblem from a n over 2, n over 4 to n over 2. Is this clear? So specifically what is going on is this. In each iteration, you are beginning with two indices, ai and aj. And you know that if x at all belongs to the array, then x must lie between ai and aj. Now what are you doing? You are just checking the middle element from ai to aj. What is that going to be? Exactly, it's going to be ai plus j by 2. You check if x is equal to this element, greater than this element or less than this element. If x is equal to this element, you return yes, that yes, you have find x in this array. If x is greater than this element, then in the next iteration, you just start with the smaller subarray from I plus j plus 2 to j. And if x is less than this element, in the next iteration, you start from the smaller part of the array, from I to I plus j plus 2. So now the question is, how many iterations in the worst case? Because if you are lucky enough you started by comparing x with an by 2, right? If you are lucky enough, it can be over in just one iteration. In the worst case, how many iterations will you take? Okay, you said something, I'll come back to you later. What was that, sir? You said? Somebody says some answer from this. N by 2. Okay, so why do you think it's n by 2? Yeah, can you please repeat that again? Okay, let's start with this. So you are saying that this is A1, first location, this is AN, and you are saying that it's going to be AN over 2. No, not n over 2, you are saying it will take at most n over 2 iterations. Okay, why is that? Yeah, n by 2 iterations. Why is that? No, you are saying in the best case or in the worst case? It's fine, just tell me now what you have in your mind. It's not necessary that you have to be correct. Just feel free to. What do you think? What will happen here? Suppose the element was in the first location. Okay, correct? Good. Suppose this is the case. So suppose x is equal to A1. Then how many iterations will it take to find it? You initially started with an by 2. Good. Then you found that x lies here. So in the next iteration, where will you start from? Good. An by 4. In the next iteration, okay, and then you again see that it's on the left hand side. So in the next iteration, where will you start from? Okay, good, an by 8. Then you will go to n by 16. Yeah, good. So you are checking these entries, n by 2, then n by 4, then n by 8, n by 16, n by 32, n by 64, n by 128, till when you reach n. Good. So then how many such elements will there be in this sequence? That's your answer, right? So what do you think? How many elements will there be? Let's just write it like this. What is n by 2? N by 2 is n by 2 to the power 1, right? What is n by 4? 2 square. What is n by 8? 2 cube. 2 to the power 4. 2 to the power 5. 2 to the power 6. 2 to the power 7. So how long do you need to go till you reach n in the denominator? 2 to the power k, right? For some k. Okay. So if you need to go for k iterations, what does this mean? It will mean that 2 to the power k is equal to n, right? Right? Because when it becomes 2 to the power k, the denominator becomes n. Now if 2 to the power k is equal to n, what is k? Sorry? K is equal to log n. Why? Because you just take log on both sides. So what is log of 2 to the power k is equal to n. And you know that this thing is going to be k, right? This is by definition, right? So what is k? K is log n. So how many iterations will you need? Yeah, in terms of n, how many iterations will you need? Log n. You will need k iterations, but k equal to log n. This is what we just observed, right? Okay. So basically the idea is this. Okay, and another thing is that if we can show that we will need at most log n iterations, the running time will be order log n, right? Because what are you doing in each iteration? You are just comparing x with one particular entry in the array. This is all you are doing. That's constant time. Okay. So let's just try to formally prove this. Why is this going to need log n iteration? See, the point is this. Look at what is happening in one iteration. In one iteration, you have this lower limit of I and this upper limit of j. And you are looking at the midpoint, I plus j by 2. And in the second iteration, in the next iteration, either you are looking at this subinterval or at this subinterval. So what you can observe is that the length of this interval, so the number of elements in your subproblem. What was the number of elements in your subproblem here? It was roughly equal to j minus I, right? Plus minus 1, I mean whether you are including both elements or not. So this was the number of elements in the subproblem. Now, in the next iteration, this number, what is going to be? So, is this clear? Please ask me a question if you don't follow it. When I say that the number of elements in the subproblem is j minus I, what do I mean by this? I mean that you are looking at an iteration where you are sure that x belongs in this region. Then what is the size of the subproblem? What is the size of the subproblem? The number of elements among which you are searching, right? And so this is the size of the subproblem. Okay? Now in the next iteration, what will be the size of the subproblem? Half of this, right? So it's going to be j minus I by 2. Why? Because you just chose the middle element and you are, this splits this interval into two exactly equal halves. In the next iteration, you are just going to look at one of these halves. So can't we just say that size of the subproblem is getting half. In each iteration. Okay. Now, what is the initially the size of the subproblem? This is n, right? Because you started with n elements. So in the next iteration, the size will be n by 2. So in the second iteration, the size will be n by 2. In the third iteration, the size will be n by 2 square. It gets further, it's getting half. So like this, how many iterations can it go on for? Log n. Okay. So binary search can be done in log n time. Any questions? Just ask me any question if you don't follow this, because the point is if you don't follow this, the rest of the lecture will be quite unbearable, probably. Okay? Okay, then let me start with integer multiplication. Sorry, because so many of you have seen merge sort. Okay. Come back to merge sort later. So, what is the problem? The problem is there are two n-bit integers. We are given so do you know what I mean by n-bit integer? So for example, I am just going to give you, this is suppose one 3-bit integer, and suppose this is another 3-bit integer. What will happen if we just multiply them? Sorry? Yeah, go ahead. You say that there would be 6 bits. Okay. What does this value represent in decimal system? Sorry? 2, right? What is this? 2 plus 4. So if we multiply them together, we should get 12. Now what is 12 in bits in the binary system? This is correct, right? This is for 1, 2, this is for 4, this is for 8. So it's not going to be 6 bits. In fact, you can show that it's going to be at most 4 bits. No, sorry, I take it back. It can be 6 bits. Why? Because what is the largest n-bit integer that you can come up with? Say x is the largest n-bit integer. N-bit integer. Yeah. It's going to be 2 to the power n minus 1, right? So there are n bits. The leading bit is 0. And the remaining n minus, sorry, what am I saying? The leading bit is 1. And the remaining n minus 1 bits are 0. Say for example, suppose n is equal to 3. Sorry, all the n bits are 1. What am I saying? Sorry for so much confusion. Suppose n is equal to 3. What is the largest 3-bit integer? It will be 1, 1, 1, right? And now what is this going to be? This is for 2 to the power 0, 1, 2. This is for 2 to the power 1 and this is for 0, right? So the value will be 2 to the power 0 plus 2 to the power 1 plus 2 to the power 2. This is 2 cube minus 1. Okay. So the largest n-bit integer for this reason is going to be 2 to the power n minus 1. Now if we multiply two integers whose values are both 2 to the power n minus 1, so x is 2 to the power n minus 1 and y is 2 to the power n minus 1. So what is xy going to look like? It's going to, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so what is the question? Okay, what is 1, 1, 1? This is 7. What is 2 cube? 2 cube is 8. So basically, okay, how many of you know this geometric series? So you start with 2 to the power 0, which is 1. Then you go to 2 to the power 1. Then you go to 2 square. And suppose you stop at 2 to the power 6. What will be the value? It's going to be 2 to the power k minus 1. Here is one other thing we will need. Suppose instead of 2, you have alpha to the power 0 plus alpha to the power 1 and you go on till alpha to the power k. What is this sum? Yeah, this is a geometric series. So this sum is going to be alpha to the power k plus 1 minus 1 by alpha minus 1. Okay, so x times y, it's going to be rough if both x and y are the largest n-bit integers. This is going to be 2 to the power n square. is going to be 2 to the power 2n minus 2 times 2 to the power n plus 1. So this term is much larger, 2 to the power 2n is much larger than 2 to the power n plus 1. So you can say that this is roughly equal to 2 to the power 2n. Okay. So you might need close to 2n bits to represent the product of 2n bit integers. So here is the point. How will you multiply 2n bit integers? 2n bit integers. What is the most simple algorithm that comes to your mind? Array multiplication, correct. So for example, how will you do this? Just the way you just multiply two decimal numbers, just the way you were taught multiplying two decimal numbers in school. So you first multiply this entire thing by 0, correct? What is it going to be? 0, 1, 0. Then you multiply again this entire thing by 1. Sorry. The first half will be 0, 0, 0, right? You are multiplying this number by 0. This is 0, 0, 0. In the second step, you multiply this entire number by 1. It's going to be 0, 1, 0, but I will just displace 1. Then again you multiply this bit by 1. Again you get 0, 1, 0. Now add them up. This bit is 0, this bit is 0. This is 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1, and this is 0. So you can see that 1, 1, 0, 0 is again 12, right? Right? So now the question is, you can write an algorithm for this. You can write a computer program to do this. Basically, you are just converting it into addition, right? What are you doing? You are just taking either all zeros or a copy of this first integer, and having these n copies, and you are just adding them up. So my question to you is, using this approach, what is the total running time for multiplying two n-bit integers? N squared, why? Yep. So the answer is this. Just look at how we did this multiplication. How many times did we need to add three numbers? 3 times, right? And why is this? Each time corresponded to one bit of 110. Since there were 3 bits, there were 3 additions. And each of these numbers themselves were n bits long, right? So how long is this number? This is n bit. N equal to 3. This is also n bit. This is also n bit. So my question is, suppose you are adding up n numbers, each consisting of n bits. How much time will you need? That is the first question you need to answer. So suppose you have two n-bit integers, say 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. So this is n-bit. And again 0, 1, 1. Two n-bit integers, and suppose I tell you to add them up. What will be the time? Yes, just for addition. Add two n-bit integers. N, right? Yeah, big O of n. It will take big O of n times. Why? Because you start by adding up these 2 bits. You get 1. This takes 1 unit of time. Then you add these 2 bits. 1 plus 1, what is this? It's going to be 1, 0, right? So you put a 0 here and you carry over 1. So when you go to the next bit, you have a carry of 1. Right? So again it's 1, 1, 0. Again it becomes 1, 0. So again you have a carry of 1. So as you go here, it's again 1, 0, 1. Again it's 0, and you have a carry of 1. Then 1, 1, 1. What is this? 1, 1. And again you have a carry of 1. Now it's 1, 0, 0. So it becomes 1. You have a carry of 0. Just add 1 and 1 next. Here it's going to be 0. You have a carry of 1. 1, 1, 1. Again it's 1. And you have another carry of 1. 1 plus 1, 0. And you have a carry of 1. 1 plus 1, 0, 1. So basically, how many times you are adding up bits? 2 or 3 bits, n times, right? 1 for each of these bits. And each of these additions for each of these bits, along with the carry, because you are just making 3 additions, it's going to take constant time. So this thing can be done in order n times. So now suppose I tell you that you have n numbers. And each of this number is n bits long. And give me the sum of these numbers. What will be the time taken? Big O of n squared. Why? Because you may say that, okay, I'll just first add up these two numbers. This will take order n times. Now you get this number and add it up with A3. Right? So A3 is here, right? Add this number with A3. This will again take order n time, right? Then you add this result with A4. So the total time again is going to be order n. So basically you are taking order n time to add up each number. And there are n numbers. So the total running time is going to be n squared. Okay? Any questions? Now, if this is the case, then can you see that integer multiplication will also take n squared time? Why? Because multiplying two n-bit numbers is equivalent to adding n n-bit numbers, the way we are just doing it from here. Okay? So this requires order n squared time. Now the question is, can we improve this using the divide and conquer technique? And we will show that we can. So what is the most obvious approach that comes to your mind if you want to apply the divide and conquer technique on this problem? So you have two n-bit integers. This is say x, this is y. So recall, we want to first divide this into subproblems, solve each of these subproblems separately, and then combine the solution. So what is a very natural smaller subproblem that we can consider here? Anyone? Any suggestion? Don't feel afraid to just come up with wrong suggestions. At least come up with some suggestions, because otherwise there's no point in me continuing. We want to apply the divide and conquer technique to speed up the running time of this algorithm, which we observed is n square. Okay? What is the most natural approach that comes to your mind? To use divide and conquer, what do we first need to do? We need to divide the problem into smaller subproblems of smaller size. Then solve each of these subproblems individually. And then combine the solution. So what are the smaller subproblems that you can imagine here? Yeah, anyone? Sorry? Yes, yes, yes. But doing that, how will you get smaller subproblems? What is the size of a subproblem here? What is the size of this problem? What is the input size? N, right? So now to get a smaller subproblem, you need to get a subproblem whose size is smaller than n. Say n by 2. Okay, good. So can you get subproblems of size n by 2 here? Sorry? Yeah. Do you have any suggestion for that? How to get a subproblem of size n minus 1 out of this? Okay, let's just consider this idea. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, you can perform shift operation, but you will get a new integer here, right? Yes, exactly. That's the most natural answer. So this is an n-bit integer, right? Let us just divide it into two halves. Say this is, say, the left half, xl. This is the right half, xr. This is yl, yr. And each of these halves are n over 2 bits. So xl, xr, yl, yr are n over 2 bits. Now can we reduce the problem of multiplying xy into multiplying these smaller integers? If we can, then multiplying any of these two integers, say xl times yr, this is a subproblem of size n over 2. Right? So the point is, can we write the product xy in terms of the products of these integers, the smaller integers? So what is x? To write the product in terms of xy in terms of these guys, first you need to write x in terms of xl and xr, right? So what is x in terms of xl and xr? Sorry? Yeah, the first half is xl, the second half is xr. But can you write x in terms of these two? You are saying xl plus xr? Okay, let us just see what does this mean. So suppose you have a 4-bit integers, okay? Say 1, 0, 1, 0. This is your x. This is your xl. This is your xr. Right? So what is x? X is 0, this is 2. This is 10, right? X is 10, isn't it? 8 plus 2, x is 10. What is xl? 2. What is xr? Now, how will you write x in terms of xl and xr? Exactly. So, you will write x is this 1, 0, 1, 0. Now, you can definitely write it as 1, 0. Just replace these two bits by 0, 0 and plus 1, 0. This is correct, right? Now what is this? This is just the first term. Let us just see the first term. The first term is 10 times 2 square. Correct? And the second term is 10. So this is XL times 2 square plus XR. Is this thing clear? This just follows from binary arithmetic. Two square is because there are 2 bits that you are replacing here by 0, 0. Since there are 2 0 bits in front of, after this 1 0. So isn't it the case, say for example, 785. How do you write it? You write it as 7 times 10 square plus 8 times 10 plus 5 times 10 to the power 0. Now why are you writing this? It's because you are splitting 785 as 700 plus 80 plus 5. And now you are saying that this is 700, so it's going to be 7 times 10 square. Why 10 square? Because there are 2 zeros after 7. And we are in base 10. Plus 80, so it's going to be 8 times 10 plus 5. This is going to be just 5 times 1. Now we are in base 10, that's why we are multiplying by 10 square. Just look what is happening here. Here we are in base 0, right? Sorry, base 2. So there are 2 zeros after 1 0, so it's going to be 1 0 times 2. Okay. So now from this example, what will be x in terms of XL and X half? Exactly. X will be XL times 2 to the power n by 2. Why? Because there are n by 2 bits sitting here, which you say replace by 0 and then add these XR plus XR. Is this part clear? Okay. And similarly, y is going to be YL times 2 to the power n by 2 plus YR. Now, if we multiply x and y, what will you get? You are just multiplying these two numbers, right? So, multiplying x and y is equivalent to XL times 2 to the power n by 2 plus XR, YL times 2 to the power n by 2 plus YR. Now, what is this? This is just simple multiplication, right? Let us just do this. What will be XL YL? XL YL times 2 to the power n plus XL times YR plus XR times YL to the power n by 2 plus XR times Y. So now each of these things are your smaller subproblems. XR YR multiplying 2n over 2 bits integer. XR YL multiplying 2 n by 2 bits integer. XL YR again multiplying 2 n by 2 bits integer. XL YL multiplying 2 n by 2 bits integer. So suppose we solve this problem somehow, and then how will you combine this solution? Meaning, if you are given these products, there are 4 such products, right? Suppose you are given these 4 such products, how can you get back xy? How much time will you take? Okay, so is the problem clear? Suppose I give you the values of XL YL, XR YR, and by values I mean the bit representation. Okay? XL YL will probably be n bit integer or something. XR YR, XR YL, XR YR. Each of them. From these integers, how much time will you take to retrieve this product xy? N squared. Why do you think n squared? No, these values are given to you already, right? Which one? Are you talking about this one? This one? Oh, no. I am saying that suppose these values are given to you, meaning that these products, XL, YR, this is suppose given to you. Yes, then you will just need 4 additions, right? Because how will you get XLYL times 2 to the power n from XLYL? You just append n zeros. You seem confused. What is the confusion? Suppose, okay, suppose XLYL is equal to alpha. And by alpha I mean this just a string of bits 1 0 1 0 1 1 1 1 something 0 0 1. This is XLYL. From this, how will you get XLYL times 2 to the power n? Yeah, it's times 2 to the power n, right? So you should just append n zeros. So if I give you some number, say 75, and then I say that multiply it by 10 to the power 6, what will be the number you get in the decimal system? You just append 6 zeros. Here we are just working in the binary system. You just append n zeros. So this will be something like a 2n bit integer or something. Similarly, you are given these two integers, you add them up, times 2 to the power n by 2. So you just append n by 2 zeros. Then you get this value. And this, suppose this is also given to you. So then how many additions you are making? You are making one addition here. Then you are just adding up this term, and this term. So you are making 4 additions. So this is going to be equivalent to adding 4 roughly ordered n bit integers. And how much time will it take? Order n, right? So this is the combined step. When you have the solutions to your subproblems, you are taking order n time to get the solution to your initial problem. And how many subproblems do you need to solve here? Sorry? Log n. No, just in this step. Suppose we are doing this thing recursively, right? I'll come back to that, what you are saying. If you just look at this equation, how many subproblems are there? 4 subproblems are there, right? Because this is one subproblem, this is another, this is another, this is another. And what are the sizes of these subproblems? N by 2, right? So you have 4 subproblems. Each of size n by 2. So in the divide and conquer paradigm, what you have was you started with a problem of size n, you divided it into 4 subproblems of size n by 2, solved each of them separately, then to combine the solution you spent order n time. Is this clear till now? Okay. Now the point is we are going to analyze this. What is the total running time? Because how will you solve each of these subproblems? Again using the same idea, right? So when you say XLYR, just look at these n over 2 bits integers, split them into half, you get 4 n over 4 bit integers, again multiply them and do this. So now we want to analyze this running time. Okay. For this, we will write down a recurrence relation first. Let Tn be the worst case time to solve, time needed to solve a problem of size n using this algorithm. So what can I write? To solve this problem of size n, we are first getting 4 subproblems each of size n by 2. This is what we have observed here, right? So what will be the time taken to get the solutions to those subproblems? 4 times Tn over 2, right? Because for each of these subproblems, you will need Tn over 2 times. And then you are spending order n time to add the solutions of these subproblems for the combined set. So you spend order n time. So this equation is valid, right? Okay. Now what is your guess? What is the running time? What is Tn? Any guess? Even wrong guess is fine. Sorry? Anyone? I think n log n. Okay. Do you have any reason for that? Yes? Correct. Correct. So it won't go on for more than log n time. Okay. So let's just look at this in this fashion. We are going to build a tree, a rooted tree. So how many of you know what a tree is? It's not one of those things that are standing outside, okay? These are computer science trees. Okay. So okay, we'll draw a tree and then see how it looks like. So suppose I put this box here, and this box just denotes this initial problem of size n. Now, to solve this initial problem, we spend order n time in the combined step and then call 4 subproblems, each of size n by 2. So I put a box for each of these subproblems. So these are of size n by 2. Okay. So now, see, with this box, I associated this O of n cost for the combined step. So to solve each of these subproblems, we have to associate order n over 2 cost, right, for the combined step. Is this clear? So here, suppose I write order n, this thing is bad. I write order n in blue. What does order n stand for here? Stand for the cost for the combined step. What does this box stand for? For the original problem. What do these 4 boxes stand for? Each of these 4 subproblems. So when you are solving each of these 4 subproblems, for each of them, you will again spend order n over 2 time, right? For the combined step. Like this. And then what will you do? You will call 4 more subproblems. This is n over 4. What will be the size of those subproblems? N over 4. Now, when solving each of these subproblems, what will be the cost of the combined step? N over 4, right? So, I am not drawing these blue lines anymore, but you can see what it will look like. And this is what I call a tree, this structure. So, basically each of these red boxes is called what is a node. So, this guy is a node. And you say that if this node is say A, this is B, C, D, E. You will say that B, C, D, E are children of A. Okay? Or A is the parent of B. So, in this tree, each node represents one subproblem that you encountered somewhere during your algorithm. And each node has 4 children. Okay? Now, we call this level 0. So, the root is at level 0. These nodes are in level 1. These nodes are in level 2. In this fashion, how many levels can there be in this tree? Okay, I'll come back to you later. What did you say? N. Somebody said N. You said N? It will be log N, right? Don't be afraid if you said N. I mean, I won't deduct any marks. There's no exam for this. So, why will we log N? Because what is the size of this subproblem at level 1? N by 2. Then what is the size of the subproblem at level 2? N by 4. In level 3, it's going to be N by 8. Then N by 16. So, after you go log N levels, each of the subproblems will become of size 1. So, you are as if just multiplying two 1-bit integers. So, then there is nothing to do, right? That guy will not have any more child. So, there will be log N levels in this. Good. Now, what is the total running time? The total running time is simple, right? Just look at these blue numbers that I have noted down. The sum of these blue numbers, that is the total running time. Sorry? N into log N, you think. Okay, I'll come back to that. But before that, are you convinced that if you just want to get the total running time, all you need to do is just sum these numbers that I am writing down. Because these numbers just represent the cost of the combined steps, and the cost of the smaller subproblems will be taken care of at the next level. Okay? So, what will be the sum of these blue numbers? Okay, now anyone? Let us just say what is the sum of these blue numbers in level 1. Okay. What is the sum in level 1? Sorry? 4 into n by 2. Isn't it correct? Because each of these subproblems is of size n by 2. So, when you are recursing on them, the combined step takes n by 2. There are 4 nodes here. It's 4 times n by 2. So, what will be the cost in level 2? So, how many nodes will there be in level 2? 16. And each node is of size n by 4. Going to be 16 by n by 4. Now, this way, can you say what will be the cost in level k? I mean the total sum of these blue numbers in level K. So first, how many nodes will there be in level K? In level 1 there are 4 nodes. In level 2 there are 16 nodes. How many nodes will be there in level K? Wait. You are right. You said something? A times n divided by 2. This will be the number of nodes in level K. Why? Because, okay, let's look at this way. How many nodes are there in level 0? It's 1. How many nodes are there in level 1? 4. In level 2, each of these nodes will have 4 children. So it's 4 square. In level 3, each of these nodes will have 4 more children. So it's going to be 4 cube. So the number of nodes in level K is going to be 4 to the power K. What will be the size of each node in level K? N by? Correct. N by 2 to the power K. Why? Because the size of a node in level 1 is n by 2. In level 2, it's going to get half. So n by 2 square. In level 3, it's again getting half, n by 2 cube. In level K, it's going to be n by 2 to the power K. Okay. So what is this number? 4 to the power K by 2 to the power K. This is 2 to the power K, right? This is 4 by 2 whole to the power K times n. So in level K, the sum of these blue numbers is 2 to the power K times n. Correct? So in level log n, what is the sum of these numbers? There are log n levels in this tree, right? So what I am asking is, what is going to be the number in the last level? Just replace K by log n, right? Sorry? Yes, and what is that? N. So in level log n, this number is going to be 2 to the power log n times n. And what is 2 to the power log n? To the power log n is n, no? Because see, what is 2 to the power k? If 2 to the power, okay. Suppose 2 to the power t was n. Okay, then what would you say? T is log n, right? Then what does this mean? 2 to the power log n is n, right? So in level log n, the total cost is 2 to the power log n times n, which is n square. So particularly, the actual running time of the algorithm will be, you just sum over all these levels, right? So k equals from 0 to log n, and in each level your cost is 2 to the power k times n. Now this is going to be a geometric series, right? If you just take this n up front, it's 2 to the power 0 plus 2 to the power 1 plus 2 to the power 2 and so on. So this is roughly going to be equal to 2 to the power log n plus 1, right? 2 to the power log n plus 1 times n. And this is equal to n square. So what is the total running time of this algorithm? Anyone? Sorry? What is the total running time? of the algorithm for integer multiplication that we just discussed. Big O of n square. This is the total running time. So, what we just discovered was that Tn is equal to big O of n square. Now, can you notice that there's something very silly that took place for the past 30 minutes? Yeah, because it's the same as the trivial running time we started with. What we started with was you just multiply these two numbers directly. And what we observed that amounted to adding n numbers, each of n bits, and that cost n square. And now we did all this complicated math, divided the subproblems, combined them, looked at this tree, and after all this thing, we got back n square. So the thing is that it's not always the case that divide and conquer will give you better algorithm. Okay? But it gives you some algorithm. But let us take a break, and when we come back, I'll show you how to improve this from n square using the same technique but with a different step. Okay? So let us take a break, or how many? This 2:50, so a 10-minute break or something? 15 minutes break. So we come back at say 10 past 3.